Welcome to Flower Juice. My name's John McDonald, and today we're going to show you how to make this really effective garland. So we've got the finished one here, and it's floral, it's got a variety of foliage, and it really does give a nice effect. So let's have a look and see how to create this type of garland. So what is a garland? Well, garland is essentially a long string of, could be just foliage or it could be all flowers, and you can really make them as simple or as complicated as you want. There's a couple of different ways that we can do that. So we can basically use a rope that we can bind stuff onto if we want to make quite a heavy garland, or you can use like a cage system with wet floral foam as well. But what we're going to look at today is really doing something that's very simple, and the materials I've got this lovely French or Italian ruscus. So this is really going to be our base for our garland. We've got a mix of flowers that we can add. So I've got some nice roses, some orchids, I've got a little bit of lysianthus and waxflower. So let's have a look at how we do this. So our French ruscus, you can buy in different lengths. So you can buy like kind of 80 centimetre, 40 centimetre. So if you buy the big one, 90 centimetre, you're going to get a good long stem. And what we've got is we've got a good central stem with lots of foliage on it. So really what we're going to do is we're going to use a wire to bind these together. So the wire I'm going to use is this kind of paper covered wire. You could use a binding wire, or you could even use a decor wire. The problem with using a wire that's not covered is that it tends to cut into things. So if you're going to make a garland that is literally just the foliage, then that's fine. You don't need to worry about using a wire. But because we're going to add some flowers, I'm going more for the paper wire. Now this is a roll of this wire, and the best thing to do is take it from the middle rather than the outside, because then it'll just feed itself from there. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to overlap our pieces of greenery to create a garland. And this is one of these things that you're going to make it as you create it. So if you wanted this really bushy, you could really do this kind of 3 pieces thick and then add 3 more pieces, but we're just going to keep this quite simple today. So I'm going to tie it at the top just to get us started. And really you just want to work in a consistent way. So what we would do is just start coming around that central stem, and then we can add in our next stem. So I would be thinking, right, I just want to overlap this half and half, and that gives me a nice consistent amount of foliage going right down the garland. So now I want to put this one in. So again, we just start bringing that one in. Now I probably wouldn't use a great big roll of this. I would probably take some off, but so that we don't end up getting in a complete knot, we'll just sort that out. So you get the idea, is essentially I'm going round the stems, bringing the stems together, not really tying in the foliage, but we're creating this rope. And you can make this as long as you want. So this is great for event work or for decorating a marquee or a gazebo or a staircase. You can really do a lot of decoration with something that's as simple as this. To make it up a level, then we can start to add in other foliages. So like here we've got some skimmia, I've got some eucalyptus, I've even got some lovely asparagus, and that can be tied in but left a little bit loose. So we can start to create a different effect. And then if you want to have more than just foliage, we can add flowers. So what we'll do is we'll just start working this one from here with a range of different pieces. So really what you're wanting to do is make sure that every piece is tied in nice and secure. So we can start putting in our skimmia. So I'm catching the top of that skimmia stem, and I know that as I add more material, we'll catch it again 2 or 3 times. So this is quite straightforward. And again with our eucalyptus, we can add that in. So you might be thinking, well, the flowers aren't in water, the foliage isn't in water. I tend to use this style particularly for foliage. And you can do this in advance, no problem at all. What you could do is you could make a foliage garland, and then once you've hung it in place, you could go through it and add flowers. Or you could do it with the flowers, but I would be more inclined to do it on the day so that it's it's already done. So that's a little bit too much of one colour in one place. So we'll just add our other rows. So we just basically work our way down. Again, we're looking for a bit of variety in here. So if you were doing this and you're thinking this is going to take a lot of material, if you can source some, garden material or some lovely ivy would be really nice. That would work very well. Another way to work it is you can make a basic garland with some content, and then, as I say, like with the flowers, come back in and add more material. So now I'm putting this orchid in, and I'm being very careful because we don't want to cut that stem, and there is a danger that you'll cut the stem with the wire as you tie it on, and we don't want to do that. So again, I'm just bringing in the rows. And we can build this up. So you're wanting to just space things out, and you can really use the flower to kind of overlap the stem of the flower before. That works quite well. So we're not really wanting to see the tying. Another idea for this as well is you can really add a little bit of colour by adding a ribbon. So once we finish, we could take a ribbon and roll that round and bring that in. And that's a really good way of bringing in colour, and maybe a colour that you struggle to find in a flower. So like a navy blue, or you can really kind of doctor it, or using a ribbon that's got a texture. So that's a good way of increasing the impact visually, but not necessarily increasing the cost. And of course, this can be quite seasonal. So you can do a garland in the summer and use a lot of kind of simple material. In the winter, you could use much more kind of like the pine and the heavy leafed material. But the French ruscus as a base works really well for all. So as you can see, we're just building this up. So let's add another orchid. The other thing about having this wire that we're using within it is that it's actually creating a little bit of a strength and a core that we can then use for attaching. So sometimes you can use that wire to your advantage. Now, and I'm leaving the foliage on the roses a little bit. So I think this is very much a case of it depends where you are. If you're somewhere that's really sunny and hot, like California, you probably want to make this on the day. I think the other thing as well is you can obviously put the garland into a bag. So if you were making just foliage, there's no reason why you couldn't make it a day or even 2 days before and just bag it up so that you have that nice and moist. It's not drying out. Okay, it's not necessarily in water, but it'll be fine if it's bagged. And then you could look at adding the flowers later. So you can see I'm just working my way around this and just working it. So what you're really needing when you're doing something like this is a nice flat surface. You don't want anything really in your way. And you can just stand, it's quite therapeutic. And different flowers, we could add in our wax flower. And we can add in like our Lysianthus as well. And again, you want to bind it in such a way that you know it's secure, you know it's quite tight, but not so tight that you're going to damage the flowers. So you can bind it with different strengths at different points. Now, I'm just going to finish that there. And actually it's a good idea maybe to leave a bit of wire at one end and a bit of wire at the other so that you can use that to support it and do things. So I've got material here like this wax flower. So we might be looking at our garland and thinking, well, I wish I'd put a bit in here. It's really simple. We can just feed that in and just pull it through. As long as it's secure, then it's going to be fine. So this is quite good that we can still do that. We've got a core of 2 or 3 stems that are overlapped, and that gives us a structure that we can use for adding other material. And it's as simple as that. So we've really got a nice garland that's nice and floral, doesn't take a lot of time or a lot of materials, and it's not got a heavy base. So this is, as I say, a garland style that I use quite regularly, great for functions and quite effective visually. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to subscribe to keep up to date to all our videos, then click here and tap that button so that you get a notification. So thank you for watching, and join us again soon.